Welcome back to Digital EQ Reimagined, the space where we don't just scroll, we soul search. I'm your host, Diedrich, and today we're cracking open the next layer of this emotional onion. Digital EQ, what it is, why it matters, and how it's either sharpening or dulling the way we connect, communicate, and care in our digital lives. But first, let's rewind. In episode 1, we unpacked the why behind this movement. How emotional sovereignty is under siege, how our emotional data is being mined, and why reclaiming our inner world is no longer a luxury, it's survival. Today, we shift focus from the threat to the toolbox. Because if the digital world is rewriting the rules of emotional interaction, we need new strategies. And that starts with understanding digital emotional intelligence. By now, y'all know I like to go backwards a tad for a little context. Let's start with the core problem. Traditional emotional intelligence frameworks weren't built for the world we live in now. The classic EQ skills, self-awareness, empathy, managing relationships. They were created for in-person, face-to-face interactions. They assume you can read tone, eye contact, body language. But let's be real. What happens when the tone is a dry text? When connection means a group chat, a Slack thread, or a heart emoji on your story? In digital environments, our emotions play out differently. The cues are different, the challenges are different, but the emotional playbook we've been handed, it's still stuck in analog. We're basically trying to use a flip phone manual to troubleshoot an iPhone 15. Do y'all see where I'm going with this? And here's the second problem: money. Let's talk access. Have you noticed how learning emotional skills has become expensive? Emotional intelligence is now an industry, and a booming one. You've got $500 a seat workshops, $2,000 coaching programs, corporate EQ certifications with all the lingo and none of the soul. And sure, leaders need training. But what about everyday people? What about folks who are just trying to breathe, communicate, set boundaries, and feel human again? The emotional intelligence conversation has become paywalled. We've taken a core human ability and made it a premium feature. That doesn't sit right with me. And I know it doesn't sit right with many of you either. So here's the mission. We've got a twofold issue: emotional intelligence frameworks that are outdated for our digital world, emotional skill building that's inaccessible for far too many. This podcast and the digital EQ movement exists to challenge both. We're here to evolve the model and democratize the access to make emotional intelligence modern, inclusive, and affordable as it should be. Because emotional intelligence isn't a buzzword, it's not a flex. It's not something you buy in a leadership course. It's a life skill, a liberation tool, a digital survival kit. And today, I want to tell you why this mission is personal to me and why it should matter to you too. Now, let me bring this home with a story from my own journey in human resources. A few years back, I started noticing a trend: companies introducing affect computing into their hiring and promotion processes. On the surface, it seemed like a cutting-edge way to measure emotional intelligence. But as a professional and as a person, something felt off. Let me tell you about one young man I interviewed during this time. He was clearly brilliant. His answers were thoughtful, eloquent, and complete. But there was one thing that stood out. He had trouble maintaining eye contact during our virtual interview. The affect computing system flagged this as a negative indicator, scoring him relatively low on emotional intelligence. But I saw something different. His insights were sharp, his communication was clear, and his potential was undeniable. So I hired him anyway. And here's the best part. Today, that same young man manages the entire department I hired him into. He didn't just succeed, he thrived. His leadership is proof that sometimes algorithms get it wrong. Affect computing might be amazing technology, but it's just that, a tool. It should aid our decision making, not replace it. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. What if it hadn't been me? What if someone else had been in that seat? Someone who trusted the algorithm more than their own judgment. That young man might have been passed over, not because he lacked ability, but because he didn't fit some narrow, pre programmed definition of emotional intelligence. Human interaction and human perception should always reign supreme. Because at the end of the day, no algorithm can truly understand the richness of human potential or the depth of human complexity. Digital EQ addresses this. It's about understanding emotions in context, not just measuring them with cold data. It's a reminder that we need to bring the human back into human resources and every other digital space. That's something to think about as we move forward. So let's take this opportunity to break down exactly what digital emotional intelligence is and how it can cut through the noise, putting you back in charge of your emotional sovereignty. Digital EQ is your emotional firewall and compass in a world of digital noise. Just as a firewall protects you from online threats and a compass keeps you from getting lost, digital EQ helps you manage your emotions, recognize manipulation, and stay grounded in spaces designed to distract, polarize, and provoke. It's not just about how you feel, it's about how you protect what you feel. Here are the 5 principles of digital EQ that I've come up with. 1. Digital self-awareness. Know what you feel and why when you're online. Digital self-awareness means noticing how certain platforms, posts, or people affect your emotional state. It's tuning in to your digital mood shifts. Let's see what that looks like in real life. You find yourself doom scrolling the news every night, then lying awake in a stress spiral. One night, you finally ask, why do I feel so anxious? You realize the late night scroll is a trigger. So you set a digital curfew and start reading a book instead. That's digital self-awareness in action. Second, algorithmic influence management. Curate your feed, or your feed will curate you. This principle is about recognizing how algorithms shape what you see, feel, and even believe. High digital EQ means you don't let AI do your emotional programming. Real life insight. You notice TikTok keeps feeding you emotionally charged content, rage, sadness, comparison. You reset your interests, mute triggering topics, and follow voices that bring balance. You're not just a consumer, you're a curator now. 3. Emotional boundary setting in digital spaces. Just because you're online doesn't mean you're available. Set limits, mute chats, unfollow energy drainers. Say no to the pressure to respond instantly. This isn't rudeness, it's emotional sovereignty. Here's an example. You're in a group chat that's always arguing, it's draining, so you mute it after 8 p.m. and check it on your own terms. You just reclaimed your evening and your energy. 4th, manipulation detection. If it's making you mad, scared, or desperate, pause and investigate. Manipulation detection is your internal BS detector. You question what's trying to hijack your emotions and why. This protects your mind and your peace. Real world example. A friend DMs a viral headline that enrages you. Instead of sharing it instantly, you fact check it. Turns out it's exaggerated clickbait. You avoid spreading emotional misinformation and keep your cool in the process. 5th, digital response regulation. Just because you're triggered doesn't mean you have to type. This is about taking a breath before responding. It's the digital equivalent of count to 10. You control your tone, timing, and decision to engage. Here's what that looks like. You get an email from a coworker that sounds, let's say, sharp. You feel the heat rise, but instead of clapping back, you pause, reread it later, and realize the tone might not be intentional. You respond with clarity, not emotion, and save yourself a week of awkward tension. Now I get it. Some of this might still feel a little abstract. So let me break it down with some personal stories. Real moments where these digital EQ principles didn't just sound good, they saved me. These are the ways they've shown up in my own life, sometimes quietly, sometimes urgently. Because theory is great, but transformation, that's in the lived experience. Digital self awareness. There was a point during the pandemic where I'd scroll TikTok every night, just trying to decompress. But I started noticing that every time I logged off, I felt worse, not better. My mood shot, my energy zapped. And the wild part? I didn't even realize it until someone asked me, "What's the last thing online that made you feel joy?" And I couldn't answer. That's when I realized I wasn't being entertained, I was being drained. Algorithmic influence management. And I remember opening Instagram one morning and realizing my feed had quietly become a mirror of my insecurities. Fitness models, luxury homes, soft life, aesthetic everything. And I was like, when did this become my reality? That day I did a purge. I unfollowed, muted, reshaped my digital environment to match my energy. Because if the algorithm learns from me, then I'm going to start teaching it better. Emotional boundary setting in digital spaces. This one hit me during a stretch of back-to-back Zoom calls. Work chats would ping all night. Friends were venting in group texts. Notifications never slept, and neither did I. One night, I turned on Do Not Disturb for 12 hours straight. And for the first time in weeks, I exhaled. That silence wasn't emptiness, it was protection. Emotional boundaries aren't selfish, they're sacred. Manipulation detection. A close friend sent me a video once, one of those viral, "Can you believe this?" headlines. My first instinct? Rage. I almost shared it to my story, but something felt off. So I paused, checked the source. Turns out it was satire, chopped up to look real. That moment taught me, even when it feels true, we still have to check. Our emotions deserve clarity, not manipulation. Digital response regulation. This one, it saved me from more than a few keyboard wars. I once got a message that felt like a low blow. I drafted a full clapback, reviewed it, deleted it, waited 24 hours, then replied with clarity, not heat. And guess what? The conversation went way better than it would have if I'd hit send in the heat of the moment. Sometimes your greatest flex is the message you didn't send. Okay, let's do something I think is long overdue. Let's map these digital EQ principles to the emotional intelligence skills we've already known and studied. Because, like I said, this isn't about replacing traditional EQ. Oh no, this is an evolution. We're taking those analog skills and upgrading them for the world we live in now. Here's what that looks like. Digital self-awareness maps directly to self-awareness. It's about knowing your emotions, but through the lens of how you show up online. Algorithmic influence management aligns with social skills because it's not just about what you say, it's about how you move and who influences your space. Emotional boundary. Setting ties into both motivation and empathy. It's about honoring your emotional capacity so that you can continue showing up with care for yourself and for others. Manipulation detection stretches across self-awareness and empathy. It's that gut check when something just doesn't feel right, even if it's dressed up as truth. And digital response regulation, that one maps cleanly to self-regulation. It's how we hold our tone, our timing, and our truth in digital conversation. Now, as we wrap up today, I want you to take a moment to reflect on these 5 principles of digital EQ. Think about how digital self-awareness, algorithmic influence management, boundary setting, manipulation detection, and response regulation are already playing out in your online life. And as we move forward, it's crucial to understand that digital EQ isn't some entirely new concept that replaces what we know about traditional emotional intelligence. Instead, it's an essential extension of those core human skills, adapting them for the unique landscape of our digital interactions. Just as our emotional lives aren't confined to face to face encounters anymore, our understanding of emotional intelligence needs to evolve to encompass our digital selves. Now, looking ahead, The choices we make today about our digital emotional sovereignty will have profound implications for the future. In our next episode, we're going to explore potential future frameworks. Imagine scenarios where we either passively surrender our emotional data and agency, perhaps leading to an emotional dystopia or a point of emotional singularity. Or conversely, picture futures where we actively fight to reclaim our inner world, fostering an emotional rebellion or even an emotional renaissance. These aren't just abstract ideas, they are potential realities, depending on whether we choose to become conscious and proactive in protecting our emotional sovereignty in the digital age. Are we going to be passive data points or active agents in shaping our emotional futures? That's what we'll be diving into next time. Thank you for joining me today on Digital EQ Reimagined. I look forward to exploring these potential futures with you in our next episode. I'm your host, Diedrich. Stay emotionally sovereign, stay digitally smart, and remember, stronger emotions, not stronger algorithms. See you in the next one.